Welcome to the deep dive. You already know the universe we are jumping into today.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are listening to this, you're likely intimately familiar with the sprawling, million-year epic that is the Dystopia manuscript.
Right, the really massive stuff.
Yeah, you know all about the conscious space dust, the shifting topographies, and those macro-level interdimensional wars spanning entire galaxies.
The classic cosmic lore.
Exactly. But we are not going to rehash those cosmic origins today because, quite frankly, you don't need us to remind you of the basics.
No, you definitely don't.
Instead, our mission for this deep dive is to completely shift the scale. We are stripping away the planetary warfare and zooming all the way in on this highly specific, claustrophobic, and, frankly, intensely terrifying sequence buried deep within the lore.
And it's a brilliant pivot by the author, really.
Right.
Yeah, because we're looking at a localized narrative that functions entirely as a psychological thriller.
It really does.
It takes all those massive reality-bending concepts of the broader universe and just forces them into the perspective of a single traumatized child.
Which changes everything.
It does. The narrative scale shrinks from the infinite cosmos down to a windowless room, and ironically, the stakes feel exponentially higher because the terror is just so intimate.
So, to set the stage for you, I want you to imagine a small, seemingly mundane town.
The kind of place where nothing historically happens.
Exactly. But currently, this town is paralyzed by an unseen, unspeakable fear. Children are vanishing.
And they aren't just wandering off.
No, they're not wandering off into the woods or being taken from the streets. They are disappearing from locked bedrooms in the middle of the night.
With no broken windows.
No forced doors, nothing. They simply cease to be there. And then, inexplicably, some of them return.
Brought back in heavy military transport trucks, no less.
Right. But the children who come back, they share an impossible, identical story about a dark forest and a horde of skeletal hunters.
Which brings us to the actual start of today's focus.
Yes, we are starting our journey right in the middle of the fallout from these returns, down in a highly classified underground facility known as Sublevel 1147.
And the environmental storytelling in this opening sequence is just incredibly dense.
It drops you right in.
It really does. We are plunged into the heart of a military compound deep underground. Structurally, sublevel 1147 is this architectural manifestation of ultimate control.
Ultimate security.
Exactly, rational human authority. It's designed to withstand nuclear impacts and biological threats.
But it's completely falling apart.
Right, from the very first sentence, the environment is in a state of catastrophic failure. It is in total lockdown.
The sensory overload is what stands out immediately to me. I want to spend some time on how chaotic this is. You are standing in this subterranean hallway, and alarm bells are ringing relentlessly.
It's deafening.
And the manuscript specifically mentions sirens hooting, which is a very particular word to use.
It is.
A hooting siren is this guttural, almost organic warning sound. It's not just your standard digital beep.
It feels primal.
Yeah. And the lighting is completely erratic. There are these seizure-inducing red and white lights flashing rapidly, bouncing off the walls, vibrating from the roof to the floor.
It's pure panic.
But I'm struggling to understand something, though. If this is sublevel 1147, supposedly the absolute pinnacle of military technology, why do standard operating procedures collapse so quickly?
You'd think they'd have a plan.
Shouldn't they have protocols for anomalies?
You would definitely expect that. But I think the author is making a distinct point about the limitations of human bureaucracy when it's faced with the supernatural.
How so?
Well, the military operates on the laws of physics, predictable human psychology, and measurable threats.
Right, things they can shoot or contain.
Exactly. The alarms, the hooting sirens, the strobe lights, these are all systems designed to intimidate human intruders or alert personnel to a mechanical failure.
But they aren't dealing with human intruders.
No. Military protocol is entirely useless against an enemy that simply bypasses physical reality. When children are plucked from locked rooms by interdimensional entities, standard operating procedures don't just fail, they short-circuit.
That makes a lot of sense.
The seizure-inducing lights are essentially a physical manifestation of the military's collective panic.
The adults are losing it too.
Precisely. The adults in this facility are experiencing the exact same terror as the townspeople. They just have millions of dollars of hardware malfunctioning around them to prove it.
That makes the cut to the next scene so jarring. Right in the middle of this absolute, deafening, strobe-lit chaos in the hallways, we are pushed into an interrogation room.
A very quiet, very sterile room.
Yes, this room holds a small child, specifically the captain's son, who is one of the returned children. And you have to picture this room because the details are deeply unsettling.
They really are.
It has stark white walls and gray floors. No pictures, no windows. And sticking out of the white ceiling is this shiny black bulb.
And that shiny black bulb is a brilliant narrative device.
It's super creepy.
It implies constant 360-degree surveillance, but in a very cold, unfeeling manner. It evokes the image of a compound eye or a predatory lens watching a traumatized subject.
It's like a bug under a microscope.
Exactly. It completely strips away any illusion of privacy or safety.
And the furnishings do not help at all. If anything, they make the room feel entirely alien.
They're bizarre.
There's a thin coffee table, and sitting right in the middle of it is a fake green plant. Under the plant is a small, round makeup mirror.
Just seemingly random items.
Totally. Then for seating, there's a lounge chair where the child sits, and adjacent to it, something called a blue inertia chair.
Which is a massive red flag.
Wait, stop right there. You mentioned the broader lore earlier, but in a classified military setting, what exactly does an inertia chair imply about how they're treating these kids?
It implies a lot.
Are they expecting sudden, violent physical outbursts?
It implies something far more concerning than a simple temper tantrum, I can tell you that. In aerospace and advanced military contexts, an inertia chair is designed to secure a human body against extreme physical forces.
Like G-forces.
Right. Sudden acceleration or violent spatial shifts. The fact that they placed an inertia chair in an interrogation room with a child suggests that the military expects the boy to undergo a violent physical event.
Oh, wow.
Perhaps the returned children are prone to sudden involuntary teleportation, or perhaps their bodies convulse with such unnatural force that a standard chair would just shatter.
So they're treating him like an unexploded bomb.
Exactly. It immediately reveals that the military does not view this child as a victim to be comforted. They view him as a volatile, potentially explosive anomaly that needs to be anchored to the floor.
That drastically recontextualizes the entire room for me. The fake plant, the makeup mirror, the lounge chair. It's an aggressive, clumsy attempt to simulate a comforting human waiting room.
A very poor attempt.
It feels like an alien intelligence read a clinical manual on human relaxation, but got all the proportions and emotional context completely wrong. It's a cell poorly disguised as a lounge.
It highlights the utter disconnect between the traumatized child and the adults demanding answers. The environment is stripped of all organic life. Even the plant is plastic.
Right.
And the author notes that the door to this room has barely any visible lining. A nail couldn't fit between the seams, and there is no handle on the inside.
Oh, man.
The room is designed for absolute containment.
Then we get the arrival of the interrogator. The heavy door decompresses with this loud, visceral K-A-K-Q-S-H sound.
K-H-T, yeah, a real heavy machinery sound.
The door opens, and in walks Dr. Maggie. She steps into the room, wiping mist away from herself. She has blonde hair, she's wearing a white lab jacket, and protective goggles are hanging from her neck.
The goggles are a great detail.
She sits down in that blue inertia chair, introduces herself politely, and asks in this incredibly sweet, calm voice if she can start with a few easy questions.
It's so jarring.
What kind of environment was she just standing in to be covered in mist before entering a child's interrogation room?
Well, the mist and the decompression sound suggest an airlock, or perhaps a cryogenic or sterilization chamber immediately outside the door.
Again, containment.
It reinforces the idea of quarantine. Dr. Maggie is entering a biologically or dimensionally quarantined zone. Her sweet, calm demeanor is completely incongruous with the protective goggles hanging around her neck.
And the vault she just stepped out of?
Right. She's projecting the archetype of a caring pediatrician, but her equipment and the environment scream that she's a hazard material specialist.
Which makes the child's reaction so incredibly compelling to read. How does a little boy who has supposedly just survived an abduction by monsters react to this smiling, polite doctor?
You'd expect tears.
Yeah, but he's not cowering in the corner. He's not sobbing for his mother. He is intensely irritated.
Irritated is the perfect word. The psychological state of the child is arguably the most fascinating element of this entire subterranean sequence.
He lets out a loud sigh, but it's not a sigh of comfort. He immediately snaps at her. He says he feels like he has been in this facility, quote, for like ever, like forever, like more than eternity,
He's just so done with it all.
He completely bypasses her polite greetings. He basically tells her to drop the ritual pleasantries. And then he uses this highly specific phrasing.
The simulated reality line.
Yes. He tells Dr. Maggie that he feels like he's stuck in a simulated reality or a reacting loop. For a child to use terminology like that, something fundamental in his psyche has shifted.
If we unpack the concept of a reacting loop, it reveals the staggering depth of the secondary trauma the military is inflicting upon him.
Secondary trauma, right?
The narrative describes him speaking like a wise and irritated monk. He's no longer acting his age. He has been through this exact conversation or versions of it over and over again with different doctors, different officers, different specialists.
It's an assembly line of interrogations.
He recognizes the pattern. He knows the ritual of the interrogation. He views Dr. Maggie not as a savior, but as just another systemic hurdle, another manifestation of the adult world's refusal to accept reality.
I want to focus on that secondary trauma for a moment. Just imagine, you are a child. You have lived through a literal, visceral nightmare. You possess a terrifying truth about entities that hunt children.
A heavy burden.
And your reward for surviving is being locked in a windowless, hermetically sealed vault, subjected to endless, condescending questions by adults who are fundamentally trying to fix your memory.
They want to pathologize his truth.
Exactly. They don't believe you.
Yeah.
They want to cure you of your truth.
And that is exactly why he describes it as a simulated reality. The adults are performing a relentless psychological manipulation, trying to force his horrifying memories into a rational, manageable box.
They need it to make sense in their military rulebook.
They want him to admit it was a hallucination, a stress response, or a bad dream. But to the child, this endless loop of adult disbelief is its own form of psychological torture. His irritation stems from sheer exhaustion. He is entirely depleted by their ignorance.
So, worn down by this reacting loop, he essentially relents. He agrees to tell the story one more time, and the moment he does, the narrative violently yanks us out of that cold, sterile, flashing military base.
A complete setting change.
We are transported back in time into his memory, and the thematic whiplash is intense. We are suddenly dropped into a sweltering, bright, aggressively normal summer day at the local outdoor pool.
The transition is a masterclass in establishing a psychological baseline.
It feels so safe.
The author moves the audience from clinical claustrophobia to an expansive, sensory-rich environment that is universally recognizable. It's a deliberate manipulation of nostalgia.
The sensory details of this cool memory are so vivid and specific. The kids are hanging out in the kiddie pool, they're splashing around, running in circles to create a water vortex.
Standard summer stuff.
And the memory specifically names the games they are playing. Marco Polo, Sealman Swimmer, action movie in slow motion. It is pure, unadulterated childhood play.
It really is.
But knowing where the story goes, I have to ask you, is it a coincidence that he specifically remembers playing Marco Polo, a game where you close your eyes, stumble around in the dark, and try to avoid being caught by a predator?
That is a phenomenal connection. No, it is absolutely not a coincidence.
Oh, so.
The game of Marco Polo is entirely built around sensory deprivation and the dynamic of the blind hunter and the isolated prey. It perfectly, almost cruelly, mirrors the climax of his story, where he's surrounded by monsters with eyeless sockets.
Oh, that's chilling.
The author is taking the innocent mechanics of childhood play and using them as thematic foreshadowing for interdimensional horror. The kids are practicing for a hunt they don't know is coming.
It is a brilliant narrative device because it hijacks a universal childhood experience, that chlorine-soaked midsummer exhaustion.
We all know that feeling.
We really do, and it corrupts it. After hours in the sun, that bone-deep exhaustion hits them. The mundane desire takes over. They are starving, and they are incredibly thirsty.
Yeah.
The kids pool their resources, realizing that only our narrator has any coins left. They form this little childhood democracy and make a unanimous group agreement. They decide to buy one large serving of hot chips.
A classic pool snack.
The memory really lingers on the craving. They want piping hot, salty, delicious potato slices, fried until crispy and golden brown, smothered in tomato sauce.
The focus on the specific craving for salt, fat, and heat is deeply tied to human biology. After physical exertion in the water, the body demands caloric replenishment.
Right, they've been swimming for hours.
The author is grounding the memory in an undeniable biological reality. The children are driven by a natural, healthy hunger. This grounds the scene in absolute normalcy, ensuring that the impending supernatural intrusion feels exponentially more alien and violating.
It sets you up to knock you down.
It's the calm before the storm, engineered to remind the reader of what it feels like to be completely safe and oblivious to the darker forces of the universe.
So, Driven by this completely normal hunger, they head over to the cool canteen. And this is where the mundane reality starts to fray at the edges, slowly at first.
Just little details.
The hungry kids huddle at the kiosk window. They're pushing, shoving, squishing together, craning their necks to see if the chips are cooking. They are acting like impatient, ravenous kids. Then, the sliding screen of the kiosk opens.
And we are introduced to the entity operating the canteen.
The lady behind the counter announces to the kids, "Sorry, we are all out of tomato sauce, and the BBQ sauce is empty too."
Which is disappointing.
But then she leans in and says, "But we do have our special sauce. We do have one special sauce." She offers to give them all some of this special sauce. On paper, it sounds like a slightly disappointing but normal interaction at a poorly stocked concession stand.
Right, happening every day.
But it's not what she says. It's entirely how she looks and behaves.
The physical description of this entity is where the psychological thriller truly takes hold. The narrative zeroes in on her facial expressions, or rather, the complete lack of them. She's described as wearing a stage smile.
A stage smile. It's blank. It's emotionless. It doesn't reach the rest of her face. And her eyes, the memory emphasizes that she has dark brown eyes that absolutely do not blink.
Not even once.
She emits what the narrator describes as a shimmering glare of silent, overwhelming expectation. I wanted to dig into this because this goes beyond just a creepy description. Why does an unblinking smile trigger such a profound sense of dread in the narrator?
What the narrator is experiencing in real time is the uncanny valley effect, which is rooted deep in evolutionary psychology.
Like our innate warning systems.
Exactly. Human brains are incredibly sophisticated pattern recognition machines. We're specifically tuned to read micro-expressions, facial symmetry, and emotional authenticity.
So when something is slightly off,
When we encounter something that looks mostly human, but lacks the subtle, involuntary movements of a real human being, like natural blinking or the slight shifting of facial muscles during a smile, our brain's amygdala fires off a massive warning signal.
so the brain recognizes a counterfeit.
Exactly. From an evolutionary standpoint, an unblinking stare is associated with two specific threats: a predator locking onto its prey, or a deceased, diseased body.
Both things you want to run away from immediately.
Our biology screams at us to run away. This entity is wearing humanity like a poorly fitted mask. She's performing a human function, serving food at a community pool, but her lack of biological authenticity triggers a primal alarm bell deep within the child's nervous system.
The ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing.
It's a predator mimicking the safe environment of its prey to lure them in.
The narrator's brain is desperately trying to process this. He's standing there, wondering why she is smiling like that, why her eyes are so dead. And before he can even articulate the danger, the delivery of the food happens, and the anomaly becomes undeniable.
The auditory cue here is great.
From behind the counter, a deep, incredibly incongruous manly voice shouts out, "Order 72. 72. Hot chips and special sauce." The food is shoved through the window and handed directly to our narrator, since he was the one holding the coins.
The auditory juxtaposition is critical here. You have the eerie, unblinking woman with the stage smile, suddenly accompanied by a booming, mundane shout of an order number from an unseen male voice.
It doesn't fit the picture at all.
It's disorienting. It scrambles the senses.
And the physical artifact he's handed completely shatters the illusion of the suburban pool. The narrator notices things are wrong instantly. He's standing on hot concrete next to a chlorinated pool.
You expect normal packaging.
You expect the chips to be in a cardboard cup, or wrapped in white butcher's paper, or sitting in a greasy plastic fry basket. But the chips are handed to him wrapped in a neatly folded green banana leaf bundle, tied shut with a single coarse strand of string.
It's an artifact from a completely different reality, seamlessly and carelessly inserted into the mundane world.
It just doesn't belong there.
The industrialization of a suburban pool, the concrete, the plastic, the processed food packaging, it is suddenly interrupted by organic, jungle-like flora. It's an interdimensional tether manifesting physically in his hands.
Then there is the sauce itself, the special sauce. It does not look like food. It is described as gooey, thick, light brown, bubbling, and fizzling. It sounds like it's practically alive.
The specific detailing of the bubbling and fizzling is a clear indication of an active chemical, or perhaps magical, reaction.
Not your standard ketchup.
It's not a condiment at all. It's a concoction. It is a volatile substance reacting to the atmosphere of our dimension.
This is where the psychological horror really spikes. Our narrator is holding this weird, organic banana leaf bundle. He's staring at this fizzling, bubbling brown sauce. His mind is frozen in thought, trying to reconcile the unblinking lady, the manly voice, and the jungle leaves.
He's hesitating.
He is hesitating. But his friends, they don't hesitate at all. They completely lose their minds. Narrative says they tear into leaves like piranhas. They act like festive pigs home for Halloween.
The phrase, festive pigs home for Halloween, is a masterstroke of chaotic, grotesque imagery.
It paints such a bizarre picture.
It implies a gluttonous, mindless, almost celebratory frenzy. They have abandoned all social decorum, all childhood friendship dynamics, all caution. They are operating on pure, chemically or magically manipulated instinct.
They are dunking fistfuls of these hot, oily chips into this bubbling, fizzling concoction, shoving them into their mouths with reckless abandon.
Just completely unchecked behavior.
What truly stands out in this moment is the deep, profound isolation of our narrator. He's the one physically holding the bundle, but he's balancing it as far out and away from his own body as possible.
Trying to keep away from them.
He's trying to avoid the swinging arms, the clawing fingers, and the desperate shoving of his friends. He just watches them devour the contents, licking the leaves clean in desperation for more. They have turned into salivating, single-minded zombies.
And this is the crux of his trauma. Because he held the coins, he held the bundle. Because he held the bundle, he observed the anomaly of the leaves and the sauce up close. His momentary hesitation saved him from consuming the tainted substance, but it also plunged him into a state of profound psychological dissociation.
He's awake while they're asleep, basically.
His perception remains unclouded by the sauce, but he is entirely alone in his clarity.
The physical description of this dissociation is chilling. He says that fear creeps up his toes and up his back like crawling spiders. He experiences what he calls a slow-motion brain freeze.
A very apt description.
He falls into a foggy haze where the connections between things start to fade. He's trying to figure out what's wrong, but his brain is stumbling. He hears sounds, but he cannot figure out their origin or meaning.
Can you unpack the physiology of what is happening to him in this moment? Why does his brain short-circuit like this?
He is experiencing an acute physiological freeze response, which is a core mechanism of severe trauma. His nervous system has recognized a mortal, existential threat before his conscious, rational mind can fully articulate it.
So his body is ahead of his brain. He's trying to apply logical questions to a fundamentally illogical situation. Why are there banana leaves at the pool? Why isn't the canteen lady blinking? Why are my friends acting like starving animals?
But none of those questions help him.
Logic is utterly useless because a supernatural trap is springing closed all around him.
So his body knows he's in danger, but his brain just cannot compute the data.
Exactly. The creeping cold, the brain fog, the auditory dissociation, these are the symptoms of reality breaking down. His brain is trying to process conflicting streams of information.
Yes, safety versus the threat.
The sunny safety of the pool versus the predatory threat of the uncanny canteen lady and the frenzied behavior of his peers. The cognitive dissonance is so massive that his conscious processing simply halts.
That's terrifying.
It is the horror of being the only sober, unaffected person in a room where everyone else has lost their minds to a parasitic manipulation.
That isolation is terrifying. You're awake, you're seeing the threat, but you are completely alone. And that isolation is the crucial bridge to the final phase of this memory. Because he didn't eat the fizzling sauce, his eyes are wide open to the reality shift that is about to occur.
The trap has been sprung.
Yeah.
The special sauce was the catalyst, functioning as an interdimensional tether that yanks the children out of their secure, sunlit world and drags them into the hunting grounds of the predators.
The shift happens instantly, without any cinematic fade-out. The boy looks up. The memory notes that he looks right through his frenzied, sauce-covered friends. And in that moment, he realizes the bright, sunny, noisy outdoor pool is entirely gone.
It just disappears.
The hot concrete, the splashing kiddie pool, the unblinking lady, vanished. They were suddenly standing in a dark, foreign forest. The temperature has plummeted, the light is gone. And in this oppressive, dark forest, shadows are approaching them rapidly from the tree line.
The transition from the blinding, sterile light of the summer sun to the suffocating darkness of the forest is the realization of the trap closing. The psychological baseline established earlier is completely shattered.
And what emerges from those shadows is the stuff of absolute nightmares. A horde arrives. The memory refers to them as skellingtons, which on the surface sounds almost like a childish Scooby-Doo villain name.
It sounds kind of silly at first.
But then you get the physical description. These are living, moving, clanking human bones. They're armed with swords. They are marching in a coordinated horde.
Nothing silly about that.
And most terrifyingly, as they get close, the narrator looks up into their skulls. They have no eyes. Their eye sockets stare right back at him with what he calls black pits of death.
The horror of the skellingtons lies in their inexorable, silent approach. But the true psychological weight of this moment is the dreadful realization that dawns on the narrator.
Putting the pieces together.
He understands, in a flash of terrible clarity, what the entire sequence at the pool actually meant. He realizes what that bubbling, fizzling special sauce was.
It was never food.
It was never food. It was a marker. It was a poison that specifically tagged his friends as prey.
So the sauce is quite literally a tracking beacon. It is bait.
It is bait, but it goes deeper than that. If we connect this event to the broader lore of the dystopia manuscript, we understand the true nature of these nightmare predators.
Oh, they aren't just hungry for chips.
The skellingtons do not just hunt for sport. They hunt to feast on the life force of children. The manuscript establishes that they pick the meat down to the bone.
Brutal.
But they consume more than just physical flesh. They feed on the emotional resonance of the prey. They consume the children's pain, their isolation, their terror, and their misery.
That makes the whole setup so incredibly malicious. The creepy canteen lady, the stage smile, the weird sauce. It was an elaborate, highly engineered bait and switch.
A perfect trap.
A trap specifically designed to isolate the innocent, infect them with a beacon, and pull them into a dark dimension where the hunters possess the absolute, unquestionable advantage. The children, driven by a normal craving for hot chips, literally fed themselves to the monsters.
And because our narrator did not eat the sauce, he is an anomaly in the forest. He is untagged. He is a witness to the slaughter of his peers.
He is standing there, looking into these black pits of death, watching his friends, who are still licking their fingers, oblivious to the reality shift, being targeted for slaughter.
A waking nightmare.
And this leads to the absolute climax of the memory. The paralyzing trance that has been holding him hostage, the slow motion brain freeze, the foggy dissociation, it finally violently shatters.
The survival instinct kicks in.
The narrator takes a deep, ragged breath and he screams at his friends. But it's not a heroic cinematic battle cry. It's not a call to arms. It is pure, unfiltered, visceral panic.
He just screams.
He screams at the top of his lungs, "Run, go, go, run, fucking run, fuck yeah."
It is the ultimate, irreversible shattering of childhood innocence. There is no strategy. There is no plan to fight back. There is only the sudden, explosive, desperate instinct for survival.
Flight over fight.
It is a raw, uncensored reaction to an impossible, unfathomable horror.
It really hits you right in the gut. The sudden use of aggressive profanity from a young child just highlights how completely the boundaries of his safe, normal world have been obliterated.
It's so jarring to hear from a kid.
He has crossed over, in the span of 5 minutes, from a kid playing Marco Polo in the shallow end of a pool to a prey animal running for its life through an alien forest.
And this visceral, profane scream of pure terror perfectly circles back to the very beginning of our analysis.
Bringing it all together.
This is the memory. This is the heavy, suffocating truth the child is holding on to while sitting in that sterile, white, windowless interrogation room on sublevel 1147.
This is the reality he possesses.
Right.
So we have to ask ourselves, what does this all mean? Let's take a moment to summarize this incredible, harrowing journey we just went on.
It's been a lot.
We started in the deafening, strobe-lit chaos of a classified military compound in total catastrophic lockdown. We sat in a claustrophobic, fake-feeling interrogation room with a child who is strapped to an inertia chair, exhausted by the polite, clinical disbelief of Dr. Maggie.
The reacting loop.
From there, we plunged into his memory, grounding ourselves in the bright, sweltering innocence of a summer pool with his friends. We felt the relatable biological desire for hot chips, only to be confronted by the uncanny valley of the unblinking canteen lady and her bubbling banana leaf wrapped special sauce.
The bait.
We watched his friends turn into mindless, ravenous zombies under the influence of the concoction, while our narrator suffered a paralyzing dissociative freeze response. And finally, we watched reality collapse entirely, replacing the sunny pool with a dark forest, bringing him face to face with a horde of skeletal hunters, culminating in a desperate, profane scream for survival.
At its core, this sequence is a profound exploration of the extreme fragility of human reality. The central theme here is the absolute terror of being the only person in the room or the only kid at the pool to notice that a trap is being set.
It's the horror of profound isolation.
Is the nightmare of seeing the predator clearly, when everyone else around you just sees a slightly weird canteen lady, the author masterfully highlights how quickly the mundane can curdle into the monstrous,
And how isolating that knowledge is.
and how deeply isolating it is to carry the memory of that transition when the adult world demands rational, clinical explanations for fundamentally irrational, supernatural events.
It is a massive amount to process, and it really sticks with you. But before we wrap up today's journey, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to explore in your own mind that builds on everything we've unpacked today.
A little extra thread to pull.
Think back to that interrogation room in the underground bunker. Think about the simulated loop the boy mentioned, his sheer exhaustion, and the military's desperate, systemic panic outside the door.
The lockdown.
We know that eating the special sauce marks a child for the monsters in the dark forest. We know the skellingtons consume life force and misery. But what does surviving those monsters do to you? Are Dr. Maggie and the military doctors genuinely trying to cure these kids of their trauma?
Or are they trying to figure out how to harness it?
That is a chilling avenue for speculation. If these children survived an encounter with entities that literally consume life force, are the kids themselves now infected with that same dark energy?
It's a scary thought.
It reframes the entire interrogation scene. Are the children patients to be healed, or are they specimens to be studied and contained?
That is the real question. Is the military trying to save the children, or are they trying to weaponize the very trauma the skellingtons failed to consume? It is something to keep you awake tonight, staring at your own ceiling.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly intense journey. We love taking these deep dives with you, unpacking the strange, the terrifying, and the fascinating corners of these massive worlds. Until next time, stay curious, trust your instincts when someone smiles without blinking, and maybe double-check your hot chips. See you next time.